Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal Lens podcast. My name is Chad Thomas. I'm here with Jamie Widener. We're both with Jotnick's Paranormal. Jamie's on the road today.
Literally.
Um, and,
Far
I,
away.
and I am barely staying awake because I've had such a long work week and that was interesting. A long work week and long work weekend. And yeah, so my week is sort of like your day's been, Jamie.
It's been fun. It's been nothing but fun. Well, greetings from Cincinnati, Ohio. And there's Maggie. Hey, everybody's here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Yeah, it was wake up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or Columbia, Pennsylvania, where I'm at, wherever I live, and driving for 8-ish hours and having a little bit of a work function event this evening, and then here we are. So larger work functions tomorrow and Thursday for the reason I'm here. So
Right.
I love travel. But hey, this is actually the fourth time that I've been away on an away mission, if you can steal from Star Trek. Luckily, I'm not wearing the red shirt during one of our episodes. So third time from Cincinnati, once from Las Vegas. So hey, this is the beauty of technology, right? We can be anywhere at any time and still do this. So
exactly.
Let's get to it.
So, and I'm not sure why the screen's jumping around. We had Alex on here earlier just in case Jamie couldn't make it, and the system's now not happy. So
it misses him already.
Mm-hmm. But so let's talk about this weekend, Jamie.
Yeah, so I did something fun. Friday night, I went to see, and we've been promoting this for a couple weeks now, Whispers in the Dark over at the Gretna Playhouse, the Gretna Theater, sorry. It was a immersive outdoor experience of different vignettes, walking through a park area that is around the theater, ending at the final vignette inside the theater, the Playhouse. Really, really well done and really, really fun. There are still tickets available Thursday, Friday, Saturday this weekend. I know you're going Friday, Chad. So obviously there's a reason to go right there to hang out with Chad. But with it, it was an immersive experience where you really felt like you were in the moment with each of the vignettes and the actors, and each one was so well done, so well written. The creative works of Lancaster's writers really put all of their heart and soul into this to make it be a thing, and it really was. Starting at the porch and pantry in advance, I recommend some warm cider, some hot chocolate if you prefer, and of course some handheld snacks and so forth. But get there a little early. But oh my gosh, please do if you can.
Very cool. And
then we did something on Saturday, right?
We did. We were at the brewery. It was an interesting night at the brewery to get started, but we got it started. And actually, I got it started because you had to run home for something at the last minute. But
yeah, I forgot the keys needed to secure some of the site. So luckily, I live about 10 minutes away. It was quick and easy to get back before we started. But oh my gosh, like everything that could have went sideways, literally did.
It did.
We lost part of our venue due to a double booking. We flexed to a new space that we'd never really investigated before, which turned out to be, I think, fairly successful.
Yeah, it was interesting.
An intriguing opportunity, at least, in what's called the Cooper Shed, which is an area on the second floor away from between the bottling works and the Central Hotel. That includes a fermentation room of a large set of kegs that were used to start the brewing process. And then the Cooper Shed Coopers being like the ones who make barrels and so forth. So it's a craftsman or tradesman space, which is uniquely different than the brewing space that we're traditionally at, or the residential space that we're traditionally at. So we got some different activity there than we would have gotten otherwise. So something we may have to consider as a feature going forward.
Yeah. And then, our numbers dwindled throughout the night as they normally do.
Yes.
But we ended up down in the catacombs, the way we've been ending lately. And the lower catacombs was okay, normal. But I walked up to the upper catacombs, or the vat room, just to make sure, things were set and ready to go. It was just, there was an energy. I didn't know.
Chad, I'm sorry, your audio is fading down a bit.
So
Oh,
went up to the vat room, and the energy was just over. Like there was a lot of energy in there, and it felt like an old energy. And once the rest of the investigators and the guests came up, we put a K2 on the table, and it pegged the whole way to red. Like it was stuck at red, and then it would go in and out, and like it. And then we started asking some questions, and I started asking about like the time frame, and this was probably 10 minutes into it, and as soon as I asked about when it was from, disappeared.
oh wow.
Like the energy went off, and like the energy changed, the K2 went off, the flashlight did one or two more things, and then it was gone. And somebody was like, did you feel that change in the room? So I don't know what it was, but it was an interesting experience.
All right.
So
Wow. Well, as it always is, we don't know what to expect. There's no on demandness of
right,
this process, and sometimes we get things that we haven't experienced before. So
right.
we keep going.
And that's the fun of it. Like that's one of the reasons we do all this,
Absolutely.
because we never know what's around the corner.
Yes. Well,
So
speaking of not knowing what's around the next corner,
should we talk about
anyway,
the Winchester Mystery House?
yeah, let's do
All
it.
right. Well, let's
Well,
see.
well, actually, before we get that far, I'm sorry. Let me step back for a
Mhm.
second. Heather and Bert are both here, as is Todd. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining tonight.
Alex is
They're already chatting with each other, which is great.
here. Hmm.
We don't need to be here at this point, right? Um, yeah,
Right.
so it's fun, and Alex, of course, as well.
So, well, let's talk. Let's jump into the Winchester Mystery House. We're going to talk about that, which it's a sprawling mansion located in San Jose, California. Which you were there for a while, Jamie. Did you ever get to the Winchester House?
I didn't. I didn't. My furthest excursion to into San Jose. I lived in Santa Cruz, which is
Okay.
now a bit on the coast, about an hour and a half or so, maybe a little more south. My furthest excursion was to get to a mall, and I cannot remember what it was called. But coming from the east to the west, my two things. One is it's the first place I found uh, Oshman Sporting Goods, which if you know if you're from the West Coast, you know it's like the sporting goods store where you get to go in and play with all the stuff. And I could
Uh-huh.
go in there and shoot baskets and play golf and all this fun stuff. But it also had in the food court, it had an Annie Ann's pretzel, which if you're from back here, you know what
Right.
that is. But out there, I don't know how anybody even knew what it was or how it even got there. But it was like the perfect touch of home.
Uh-huh.
I was so far from it. It just took me back. So I was so happy. But that's the furthest I got. I didn't get any further, and unfortunately, I was too busy going to the mystery spot and looking for the Dark Watchers.
All
Um,
those cool places. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's
there
all
are
right.
other places that we talked about already.
So, but so we're going to talk about this tonight. It's
And Bert's already called road trip. Just say there it is.
I saw that. So, but before we begin exploring the twisting halls and the ghostly legends of the actual house, let's step back and look at the family. Okay, you know the name Winchester most likely. Anyone familiar who knows anything about the history of the Wild West, firearms, anything like that? This is the Winchester family. Our story begins with Oliver Fisher Winchester. He was an ambitious entrepreneur whose vision helped shape an industrial empire around the lever action rifle. So it's the first rifle being able to fire multiple shots without having to reload each time, making it much faster. Oliver Fisher Winchester was born in Boston in 1810. His early career began modestly as a maker of men's shirts, but he soon recognized the vast economic potential of the booming firearms industry. In 1857, he purchased a controlling interest in this is a fun name for a firearms company, Volcanic Repeating Arms Company, from inventors Horace Smith and Daniel B. Wesson. So another name in the firearms community there, Smith and Wesson. Working with other talented designers like Benjamin Tyler, Henry, and Nelson King, Winchester refined the lever-action rifle design and on May 22nd, 1866, founded the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. For the next 14 years, the company flourished. Winchester aggressively expanded into new markets and developed innovative products. With the westward expansion of the United States and ongoing military conflicts abroad, the demand for Winchester rifles remained strong. Now, in addition to his business success, Oliver Winchester was active in politics, serving as New Haven City Commissioner, a Republican presidential elector in 1864, and as Lieutenant Governor of Connecticut from 1866 to 1867. So this is somebody who was pretty prominent, had made a big business name, had a fair amount of wealth when he was living. But after years of declining health, Oliver F. Winchester died on December 11th, 1880, at the age of 70. Now, before his death, Oliver had been grooming his eldest son, William Wirt Winchester, to take over the family business. William served as the treasurer of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company and married his childhood friend, Sarah Lockwood Pardee, affectionately known as Sally. During the Civil War, the couple lived with William's parents as building materials were scarce. In 1866, they began constructing a grand home on Prospect Hill in New Haven, Connecticut. The same year, tragedy struck when their only daughter, Annie Pardee Winchester, died at just 6 weeks old. Despite their grief, Sarah and William shared a love of architecture and design. They completed the home, finished it in 1868, and it spanned about 20,000 square feet. It featured marble floors, decorative fireplaces, ornate ceilings, and elegant chandeliers. It reflected their wealth, creativity, and sophistication. Between 1880 and 1881, Sarah Winchester suffered immense loss. Her mother died in May of 1880, her father-in-law in December, and her husband, William, succumbed to tuberculosis in March of 1881. At 40 years old, Sarah became a wealthy widow. She inherited 777 shares of the Winchester stock, valued at $77,700, and earned about $7,900 annually in dividends between 1880 and 1885. And when her mother-in-law, Jane Winchester, died in 1898, Sarah inherited another 2,000 shares, and then they were each worth about $400 each. Needless to say, she was a very wealthy woman. Grieving and suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, Sarah's doctor recommended a warmer, drier climate. Remembering her pleasant travels to California with her husband, she decided to move west. In 1884, Sarah's eldest sister, Mary Converse, died of cancer, prompting the rest of the family to relocate to California. Sarah financed her sister's moves, Isabel Merriman, Estelle Gerard, and Nettie Sprague, and supported them financially for the rest of her life. Sarah arrived in California with her coachman, Frank Carroll, and soon met Edward Ned Rambo, the San Francisco agent for the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, who helped her locate property in the Santa Clara Valley. In 1886, Sarah purchased an 8-bedroom farmhouse and 45 acres from John Hom for $12,570. She named the estate Lanada. This isn't even a difficult word, and here I'm stumbling over it. Lanada Villa, inspired by a region in Spain that she had once visited with her husband. At this property, Winchester was one of the first to grow fruit in the area. The first person Winchester hired was Rambo to become the foreman of the farm, though he did also continue his duties at the Winchester office in San Francisco. In addition, she supplied housing on the property for her driver's family. She hired local people to staff the house and the farm, many of whom were from Europe, China, and later Japan. Now, the house was located on a country lane named Santa Clara Los Gatos Road. After Winchester died, the road was renamed first Winchester Road, then Winchester Boulevard. Her initial plan was to build a house to accommodate her whole family. This never happened, partly due to the isolated location and partly due to the constant construction. The only family member to live with her was her niece, Maria Daisy Merriman, who moved in when she was 21 in 1890. Sarah's passion for architecture took over. Within 6 months, the home had expanded to 26 rooms. She attended expositions that inspired her interior and exterior design. As was typical of the time, the design included much ornamentation, including a statue of Hebe, which still stands on the home today, intricately laid patterned wood floors of a variety of hardwoods, including teak and mahogany, embossed wall coverings that looked like leather or metal, ceilings decorated with stencils and moldings, German chandeliers, Austrian art glass, Asian furnishings, and French paintings. Now, Winchester had hired at least two architects, but they would not have been to the caliber she was used to from New Haven, so it is speculated that this could be why she chose to run the construction project herself, seeking the advice of carpenters she hired. Her interest in architecture was evident by her subscription to journals including Architectural Record. She did all the drawings and design, but did not have an overall plan. She worked room by room, and if she was unhappy with the results, she would tear down the section, rebuild, or abandon it for a while before returning to work on it again. The result? A rambling maze. There were windows which were pastel color, asymmetrically designed, and sharply beveled. Some initially believed they were made by Tiffany and Company. Historian Jim Wolfe believed that the windows were most likely made by glass artist John Milan from the Alexander Dusmier Company, the Pacific American Decorative Company, since the style of the glass could be found at Craigdarrow Castle in British Columbia, Canada. Wolfe's theory was confirmed when an envelope with the Dunsmuir Company's seal on it, postmarked July 1894, was found within the walls of a dining room that was undergoing restoration. A note with Winchester's handwriting was on the envelope. The haphazard way of designing resulted in an architectural labyrinth, a sprawling, ever evolving mansion with staircases that led nowhere, doors that opened into walls, and windows looking into other rooms. The upper level windows have a spiderweb tracery, a popular design of the time. Windows on the right and left of the brick fireplace have Shakespearean quotes from Richard II and Troilus and Cressida. Many of the windows purchased were never installed and are stored in areas of the house. After 1896, Winchester added stories to the then two-story home. In some areas, the home was 5 stories high. She added a 7-story tower that the San Jose News said was rebuilt 16 times before Winchester was satisfied. She added state of the art plumbing and electrical systems for the time. She built an indoor garden with an irrigation system that watered the plants, and sloping floors would channel the water to trapdoors. It is believed that her gardens, the water went to the trapdoors, which would then be piped to outdoor flower boxes. It is believed that her gardens and flower boxes consisted of 110 species of plants from around the world. She also installed an annunciator system, a common early version of an intercom to call servants. Over time, Winchester increased the size from the original 45 acres to 160 acres. Despite rumors, Sarah's endless building was not driven by madness or spirits. It reflected her creativity, independence, and architectural curiosity. Construction was often paused for months, especially as she managed her health and family affairs. In 1893, Sarah's sister Estelle fell ill and moved to the villa, where she died in 1894. In 1906, the San Francisco earthquake devastated the mansion. The 7-story tower and several upper floors collapsed, destroying chimneys and ornate interior work. Sarah ordered the debris cleared but did not rebuild. This left the home with water pipes protruding, second-story doors opening to nothing where balconies once were, and staircases going up to a ceiling where once another level existed. Only essential repairs were done to the home after the earthquake. Because she stopped construction on her home and did not rebuild, local newspapers declared her a madwoman. The only thing she added to the home was an elevator in 1916. She continued living quietly, performing only necessary repairs. Newspapers seized on her reclusiveness, fueling wild rumors that she was a madwoman cursed by the spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifles. By 1903, her arthritis had disfigured her hands and her feet, limiting mobility. Still, with the help of her nurse, Henrietta Severa, she maintained her affairs and occasionally sewed when her health allowed. By 1920, Sarah rarely left her home, ordering goods by mail or having them delivered directly to her car when she did go out to pick things up. In September of 1922, Sarah moved from her Atherton home back to the villa full-time to be near her doctor. She died there on September 5th, 1922, at the age of 83. She was laid to rest in the Evergreen Cemetery in New Haven beside her husband and her daughter. Her estate, worth between $3 to $4 million, was left to her family, employees, and charities. Notably, the William Wirt Winchester Hospital. Her niece Daisy inherited the contents of her home. While all her other properties were sold off, because Lanata Villa was in such disrepair, it was deemed nearly worthless. It was leased and opened as a tourist attraction just 6 months after her death in 1931. In 1931, John Brown purchased the property. Rumors about Sarah's supposed obsession with spirits began as early as 1908 when newspapers claimed she was haunted by those killed by the Winchester rifle. Over time, these tales grew, suggesting she built continuously for 38 years to appease ghosts or confuse evil spirits. In truth, these claims were unfounded. Fred Larson, Winchester's chauffeur after Carol's death, Ted Hansen, an employee's son who grew up in the villa, Frank Leib, Winchester's lawyer, and Henrietta Severs, Winchester's companion in many years, were all people who openly stated that Winchester was not superstitious, but was intelligent and kind. None of her former employees, servants, or relatives ever claimed she was mad or superstitious. The legend of the Haunted Mansion was a marketing creation by later owners to attract visitors. Many of these so-called haunted features, such as the 13 chandeliers and the 13 hooks and robes, were added after her death. Despite the myths, the Winchester Mystery House remains one of America's most fascinating architectural landmarks, a symbol of ingenuity, grief, and imagination. While the legends of restless spirits and endless building continue to capture our imaginations, the true story of Sarah Winchester is one of creativity, resilience, and independence. Her home, born of sorrow but built with vision, endures as both a historical treasure and a lasting mystery. Nevertheless, for over a century, countless stories have emerged about supernatural activity within the Winchester house. And I think that's what we're here for, right, Jamie?
Yep. Yep.
Visitors have reported cold spots, disembodied whispers, and the sensation of being watched. Tour guides have seen doors close on their own and heard footsteps echoing through empty hallways. The most commonly reported apparition is that of a mustached man in overalls, believed to be a former carpenter still lingering to finish his work. Paranormal investigators have captured strange electromagnetic readings and eerie EVPs throughout the mansion. The grand ballroom, despite being rarely used, is often a focal point of ghostly encounters. Another hotspot is the seance room, a small chamber deep within the home where Sarah reportedly communicated with spirits each night at midnight to receive guidance on her next day's construction plans. Many believe her spirit still roams the halls, continuing her eternal building project. So let's dig a little deeper with these following stories. So first we have the ghostly worker Clyde. He is one of the most frequently reported spirits said to haunt the Winchester Mystery House. Clyde, a ghostly worker, often described wearing overalls and a cap. Staff and visitors have claimed to see him pushing a wheelbarrow filled with coal or ash in the basement or attempting to repair the ballroom fireplace. According to the official Winchester Mystery House website, Clyde has been cited so often that guides jokingly tell guests to greet him if they see him during tours. While the reports of Clyde come from multiple employees and guests, no documented or verifiable evidence, such as video or corroborated photographs, support his existence. So these accounts are anecdotal, making this haunting largely speculative throughout though widely accepted in the folklore community. So Sarah Winchester's spirit. Many paranormal enthusiasts believe that Sarah Winchester herself still roams her labyrinth mansion. Visitors and mediums often claim to sense her presence in the seance room, hallways, or near her former bedroom, sometimes appearing as a woman in black mourning attire. Sources like Spooky Sight and Legends of America report sightings of faint female figures or the scent of violet perfume associated with Sarah's spirit. Let's see. The seance room. Perhaps the most famous room in the mansion is the so-called seance room, where Sarah was rumored to communicate nightly with spirits between midnight and 2 a.m. Reports claim she used a bell system to summon the dead, asking for guidance on construction plans. This narrative first appeared in the early 20th century and became central to the mansion's mythology. However, historians note there is no record of Sarah ever hosting seances, and the room's layout, complete with one entrance and 3 exits, suggests it was more like a storage or dressing room. The seance narrative appears to have originated from early tour guides after her death to heighten public interest. The Daisy Bedroom. The Daisy Bedroom, where Sarah was trapped during the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, is considered one of the most active haunted areas of the mansion. Visitors and employees have reported hearing sighs, seeing fleeting shadows, and experiencing camera malfunctions in the room. Some photographs taken by tourists have shown unexplained light streaks or misty figures. The earthquake incident is a historical fact. Sarah was indeed trapped there for several hours. So we do have that proof of that incident. The Hall of Fires. Another location known for ghostly encounters is the Hall of Fires, a room filled with multiple fireplaces designed to keep the mansion warm. One restoration worker claimed he felt someone tap him on the shoulder while standing on a ladder, only to find no one behind him. Similar stories of cold spots and phantom touches have circulated among maintenance crews and tour guides. So there's that. Footsteps in the water tower. Reports also describe footsteps echoing above the workers inside the water tower, even when the area was unoccupied. One maintenance employee claimed he followed the sound floor by floor until reaching the roof, only for the footsteps to stop abruptly. There's always footsteps, isn't there, Jamie?
Always.
So while countless stories of hauntings at the Winchester Mystery House persist, none have been scientifically verified. Skeptical researchers, including Joe Nickel of Skeptical Inquirer, found that the house's peculiar layout and acoustics can easily cause echoes, drafts, and shifting light, all of which can be mistaken for supernatural activity. The legend of Sarah's curse and the restless spirits of the Winchester rifle victims are compelling folklore that shaped the mansion's fame. But they remain cultural mythology, not documented paranormal facts. Yet it's precisely this blend of truth and legend that keeps the Winchester Mystery House one of America's most fascinating and haunted mystery landmarks. So let me go through a little bit of sources. There's the WinchesterGuns.com news articles, 150 years of Winchester.html, WinchesterMysteryHouse.com / a haunted history, SpookySite.com, Winchester Mystery House Ghosts, and www.legendsofamerica.com, Winchester Mystery House, and skepticalinquirer.org, newsletter /scientific investigation versus ghost hunters. So, quite a bit there, Jamie.
Yeah.
What
To
do you?
me, well, it's interesting. I mean, well, and bear with me here, folks. I'm sorry. I'm this far away from the air conditioning unit of this hotel room, and it is just kicked on, and it's rather loud. So hopefully you can hear me okay. Um, with it, with the Winchester House, and I'll take the mystery out of it because I think some of it is practical versus mystical. It is a property that is, the earthquake piece is really a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The home was damaged and wasn't repaired. So some of the stuff that goes nowhere was somewhere at one point, but stabilized and shored up enough to be still functional without having the extra stuff. The
Right.
fact that that was built upon and expanded and challenged and changed and all that stuff over all this time is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, all it takes is a belief that there is the spirits of those killed by the rifles, and so forth. I mean, yeah, don't be wrong. A lot of damage was done by the arms created by this family. Um, but does that affect her? I don't know.
Right.
I'm challenged to believe that. I guess even, but is it someone who was grieving and feeling loss and wanted maybe to bring some comfort to herself, and this was how? Was it a strong-willed woman who really wanted things done the right way or her way? Absolutely. By taking
Right.
charge, and someone of her era to be being the project manager for this construction project was is unheard of. And wealth allows you that, right?
Right.
Her affluence allowed her that position. Um, so I'm a little in between a lot of things here. Is there supernatural or paranormal things going on here? Probably. And that because it's everywhere. I mean,
Right.
and that's not saying it softly or lightly. I have no reason to doubt any of the claims. Could an employee be that passionate to the place to still be there through the days? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, there is the same claim at Wilson Castle. There's an employee there still,
Right.
maintenance fellow, seen commonly on the second floor. Um, One of the things I thought was interesting, and it ties to something else, with the bells.
Mm-hmm.
As I recall, I'll go back to, and this is fiction. Bear with me, but fact is based off fiction, or fiction is based in the fact. Sometimes, um, in the haunted mansion, one of the parts of the part Madame Leota does is to ring a bell.
Mm-hmm.
So, the idea that you're tying that connectionable thing, an audible thing, to an engagement, wouldn't be unheard of, especially when there weren't things like we use now. There weren't K2 devices or dead bells or all the wonderful tools and tradecraft that we have now in the paranormal field. Everybody would have had a bell, a servant's bell
Right.
specifically, in this case probably. Um, but it is one of those things where I can believe that very easily.
Mm-hmm.
There's the comment here from Todd, going to have to make a state by state paranormal road trip list. Yeah, yes, sir. History here is very interesting, and it is. It
Right.
really is. And I guess that's probably what intrigues me the most. As much as because it's not just the history of the home in California, it's the family's roots back in Massachusetts and the East Coast. Um, and the wildly different career paths as
Mm-hmm.
well. Going from a shirt company or a shirt maker or clothing maker of some sort, into repeating arms. That's about as wide a spectrum as you can get in career paths.
Right.
Um,
I'm sure there was more money to be made in repeating arms at the
I
time.
yeah, you think right? I would expect there to be too. Did it give up the clothing line? I mean,
Yeah,
really?
well, he did that. He started in New York, and then he moved to, before the Civil War, he moved in up to New Haven to help develop the ammunitions, because it was also developing the ammunition for the rifle.
Right. You had to have
Because
both. Right.
the before that, it was just even the repeating arms was like a lead ball filled with gunpowder. It's just it's
It's
intriguing.
consistent. Right.
So yeah, it's the history everywhere. Oh, and Maggie wants to join me
Oh,
again.
she's got something to say.
So
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I I'd like to see the home. I'd like to get
Mhm.
there. I really would, and I think you get a better feel for a place when you're there than you are from our distance that we're at
Mhm.
now. Um, it's very speculative everything we say, but I think I think what I'd like to take away from this is that there's a passion here. You
Mhm.
know, she had a passion for this property and this project, and we say this every week: where there's passion, there's energy, and where there's energy, there's activity. So I
Right.
can certainly see there being something happening in this place,
Mhm.
and with the scale of the home too. I mean, it's a big place, so um, there's a lot of ground to cover, and it had. And there's a question here from Todd: has it ever been investigated? Put it up here quick.
Yep.
Um, the answer is yes. It
Mhm.
certainly has, and I don't know that it's available for investigations like generally to the public, a sense like like a Tala or a Wilson Castle is, or Whitehill,
Right.
places a lot of us have been to. But it could be coordinated with for a fee. I'm
Right.
sure of that, but it's a question of whether
Right.
it's regular or not. I don't know.
They do have daily tours. They are sold out in advance.
Okay,
Um,
get your
I
tickets early. Okay,
Right. They have festival fright nights during Halloween. Um, they have private events and weddings, but I don't know that there's anywhere that it says you can book it for investigations. So,
if a Zach Baggins of the world or a Jason Halls of the world want to show up,
I'm
I'm sure
sure.
they'll open the doors. So,
Yeah.
and actually, I really do think ghost owners have been there before, way back in the day.
Hmm.
I recall seeing something before.
Yeah. I'm just looking quickly through to see if, yeah, nowhere. Oh, there it is. Um, they do not allow guests to hold private investigations and extend our invitations for investigations selectively.
Okay,
So, like, yeah, you would have to be a Josh Baggins or a, you know,
Zach Baggins, get it right, or he'll come after you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So,
It's like the episode of The Simpsons back in the day when they were talking about The Shining, but they had to call it The Shinning because
uh-huh,
they didn't want to get sued.
yep,
Zach Baggins.
Zach Bag, yeah,
Right. Okay. Um, Well, and I respect that because
hmm,
I think it's important, for them. And a lot of this seems to me too to be like the marketing of it, has become more of a machine than it has, because they want to obviously want to protect the property,
right,
and I think that's important. At the end of the day, the integrity of the place
hmm,
is what matters.
hmm,
But in the same way, then it becomes selective, and it seems like the message gets controlled,
right,
and that's good and bad,
right.
I guess. Um,
And as Todd's saying, if the price is right, that's what makes it
yeah,
selective. I think.
yeah, that's fair. That's kind of what I was aiming at too
Yeah,
when I was saying Zach or, I want
yeah,
anybody really for that matter.
yeah.
Um,
So,
but the people that have the resources certainly would
well,
have access if they wished.
and we're running into this with more and more venues.
Hmm.
The Haldeman Mansion is the same way.
Yep.
I'm sure if somebody came in there with the right amount of money and said, "I'd like to do a TV show, or I'd like to investigate this, and
Yep.
here's $200,000," I'm sure the doors would open up pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
I don't argue that because this is they are businesses in their own
mhm,
way,
mhm,
and there is a cost of doing business and leaving the lights on,
right,
operating the place. A lot of these folks that are there are volunteers, but there are staff. There are certainly maintenance teams. There are people
mhm,
who have to keep up with the place. There's always something that breaks.
mhm,
I get it. I totally appreciate that.
right,
Our friends at Wilson Castle Andy was pretty clear on that. Like stuff breaks all the time.
right,
So you got to have revenue to fix things. So
mhm,
getting us people like us in um, helps offset the expenses.
right. But well, this is sort of leading in a direction. Um, away from the Winchester Mystery House. But I'm not. I'm pretty sure you saw, Jamie, that one of the locations around us is possibly up for sale to a data center.
Yeah.
Penhurst Asylum, Penhurst School. And that's unfortunately things like that are going to happen more and more. I am totally opposed to that because of just the history there. Not even the paranormal side of it. It'll be a loss for the paranormal investigators, but I think that site in particular is going to be more a loss to the history and the change that came to the United States in the treatment of the mentally ill,
Mhm.
and to have that turned into a data center. Um, Look, Steve Dills has a good rant on this about on Facebook. It's worth looking into. He's like, I'm a tech guy. I like the tech side of stuff, but not that. You got to
Sure.
put them somewhere. But why? And it's that I'm sure the tax burden on a place like Penhurst is immense.
Sure.
So
It is.
how
It is.
how do you how do you
Well, it is,
cover
but it
that?
isn't, Chad. That's a zoning thing then,
Right.
right? And how it is zoned is probably the question. And I saw the article that I think you're alluding to.
Hmm.
I read it this week, and it is not it's a mixed residential or mixed commercial residential property
Right.
at this point. They rezoned it a few years ago, which allows this to happen,
Right.
this data center, because it fits. And there's question, I guess, not question, comment from the local commissioners, whoever they are, that oversights this, or whatever that body is, that it's really hard to fight for them to fight against this prospect because it fits what's allowed to be there,
Right.
you know. And then now, is it what we want to be? What is it? What we want to have? And
Right.
where Penhurst is a rural community
Hmm.
that is quaint and quiet, and this data center would not be that, but it also
Right.
brings with it employment opportunities and tax-based relief
Hmm.
and stuff like that are beneficial for those same people who live in and around that area.
Right.
So this is
There,
the eternal tipping point in development world,
right.
where we need these things to some degree because they're necessary evils of supports, but then they also take things away. Like, it's going to use a lot of water, and it's going to create a need. It has to build its own electric plant, a
Right.
facility, because of all the energy it's going to use. So, those things are going to be detractors to some degree.
Right.
Um, and of course, it's all these many buildings that are several stories tall, 2, 3 stories tall, that are not the scale and scape of what Penhurst is,
Right.
and you're going to have to knock down the facility to create a new facility.
Right.
So, the funny thing to me, and I guess this is where we are, where we fit into this conversation, is you can knock down every building on Penhurst property. You can take it all to the ground. You can fill everything in. You can build whatever you want there, but you're not going to take away the spirits of the space. So
Right.
now they're going to build up, a couple building, five. I think it's a 5 or 6 building project, and that could well have activity in it.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
In this new space. How are you going to explain that? So, and I'm joking to some degree
Right.
to say that, but it's entirely plausible that it
Right.
could happen.
Well, and this is where can we
Shame on
find
them.
yeah can we find a trade off? Can we save part of the property? I've been there. Some of the buildings are like the hospital is half collapsed. There's things that it's just not safe.
Things that should come down for
Right?
safety and the generalness of it. Yes,
Can we reach a compromise? But
possibly. And this was the beginning of a conversation. So,
Mhm.
and these projects don't get built or taken care of quickly. There's
Right.
discussion, discourse, and planning and replanning, uh, projections, prospects. There's a lot of stuff, and it takes
Right.
time. So
Hmm.
I don't think this is going to be that happens anytime soon.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and whatever,
January 1st, they're not going to be opening
yeah,
cutting the ribbon on the data center.
no,
No.
no,
So
it's down the road.
yeah. And
And the public gets involved too, which is, I think it's great if the community around this project is interested. They're certainly interested in what's happening at Penhurst as well. As it is now. There
hmm.
was the whole. I remember when this became a paranormal attraction.
Hmm.
There was a lot of NIMBYs going on there, not in my backyard.
Right.
Much like anytime the Walmart's trying to get built, I don't want that here.
Right.
But now we are, a decade down the line from then, and it's part of that community now.
Right.
and because they got to keep what they had before. Nothing
Right.
changed. It's
Right.
just a mixed, it's different use than it
Hmm.
was before.
So
So I don't know. There's so many places like this,
right.
all these older facilities that are, for lack of a better term, they're sitting on prime real estate.
Hmm.
There's a lot of land. These are sprawling, complex properties, that could become something so much more, especially when we're in need for, you know, habitable spaces.
Right.
Now the problem is they're going to build luxury, homes on them that, aren't really for everybody. So I
Right.
don't know. That's where I draw the line. You got
Well,
a lot.
and, when we were at Crescent in, when was that?
Mm,
September, August, September. I forget when it was.
it's been a
But
minute. Yeah.
we we're like, what could you do with those? Could you turn it into some sort of stay in a jail hotel? you know,
Maybe.
what can you do to preserve what's there, along with,
Yeah.
moving on to the next thing.
Keeping what truly was relevant and
Yeah,
present,
right.
and still getting to a place where it works for everyone.
Right. I may this may be an unpopular opinion, but I would rather see money and effort and time be put into something like Penhurst than the Conjuring House, because the Penhurst is, there's just so much history, and
Yeah.
it would.
The volume there is
Mhm.
different, and I'm not knocking. I agree with you largely, and I'm not knocking the Conjuring House. I've
No,
been there.
I'm
I've
yeah.
experienced the place. It's got a place in the paranormal world because
Mhm.
of what it is,
Right.
um, and what's going on there. But in this, what I would do a GoFundMe for, and no knock to Jason Hawes for his continuing effort.
No, not at all.
If it were a GoFundMe, I'd support Penhurst over Conjuring
Right.
every day.
Yep. So, but that's why, we're independent. We get to make those choices, and if we can save them all, great. So,
Yeah, that's true. This is, I mean, this is going off point to the Mystery House, the
yeah.
Winchester Mystery House, but it is to me, it's great that it's been saved and
Mhm.
largely intact, as it was in her era. Um, the the realization is that maybe she wasn't as quote crazy as people perceive she is now, because of the fact that the property was largely damaged in 1906.
Mhm.
And time, energy, and resources may not have been there. The energy probably wasn't there. When you
Right.
put all that passion into something and it gets damaged like that. Her debilitated health with her arthritis and arthritic conditions, probably took a lot of energy just to have normal days. So, I can see this in an aging station of life as well. Maybe it was just not worth the fight. And what happens when the ground shakes again?
Right.
It's inevitable. It will happen. Um, so I get all of this. I really do. What I appreciate the most, and I guess what I'll step off with is the love and passion that she had in the generalness of this home, the creation, the intricate details, the intentionality of all of it is amazing.
Right.
And you're talking about the late 1800s or early 1900s. This was craftsman at its best. This was our golden age of making things.
Mhm.
We don't do stuff like this anymore, no matter what. And I'm just so happy that it still exists and it's still available to all of us to go. If you have to get to California, which is not a problem, it's a great place to go,
Mhm.
at least to visit. It's great that it's still there for all of us to experience, and I'd like to get there myself someday.
Yep. So, well, if you do get there, you can do tours. I think it's about somewhere between $40 and $50 to go for a tour. You can add on the basement and explore the basement as well. Just, don't get caught with paranormal equipment, but our best tool is our body, right?
It's true.
So,
We say that.
so, so yeah, I think we didn't come out and say it, but I think you agree that there is paranormal activity
Yeah,
there.
I think so. I think there has to be. Again, there's passion, there's energy, there's activity. I say it every week. I'll say it every day.
Yep.
Um, I can't see how there couldn't be, given all the history there.
Yep. So, It's a fun and interesting place. I would like to get there as well. California is not high on my list right now, but maybe someday. So,
Okay.
but but yeah,
Yeah, there was somewhere back in the comments there was a bus again, so
I can always hop on a bus and sleep for a couple
it
hours.
is. We need the bus, California bus. So thanks, Bert. Well said. All right. What else? Anything else to add, sir?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, it's definitely an interesting place, and I would, if I had the opportunity, yeah, I'd go see it.
Okay. Me too.
So all right, should we talk about what's coming up?
Yeah.
What
Let's move along.
what we got going on? Let's see. Well, we're gonna push this again. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
Friday night, I will be there. I'm looking forward to seeing Megan and meeting her. And I've got friends in the cast. I'm going from with some friends from work, so we're gonna have a good time and enjoy it. Um,
So, yeah,
that-
Whispers in the Dark, a chilling world of urban legends. This weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the Gretna Theater in Mount Gretna, PA. Tickets are available at www.gretnatheater.org. So don't wait if you're interested. They may well sell out. It says a rain or shine event. I'm not sure what the weekend weather looks like. I was shine, well, not shine, moonshine perhaps, or
Wait,
moonshine.
no.
It sounds like I had some spirits. Haha. But my brother went Saturday and it rained, so they held everything inside the theater. But he said it was still a really great time. So regardless, it's going to happen. So, but it
Mhm.
is an immersive experience to enjoy.
Okay. Let's see. Upcoming episodes.
Yeah. So next week, Chad's going to talk about the hauntings of the Virginia Historic Triangle, which is Yorktown, Williamsburg, and
Jamestown Settlement.
Jamestown. Thank you. I always forget Jamestown.
Yep, me too.
Well, half the time I forget Yorktown too. So there's so much history there in our time. Actually, I'm going to step back for a second. Todd had a great comment here about equipment. Spirit Talker on mute still works.
Mm-hmm.
Still captures. Great point. I think a novelist could do the same. So there you
And
go.
the one app I have sends it to my watch. So
No, even better. Yeah, just look at what time it is all the time. Yeah. Uh, well, coming up after that one on October 28th, I'm going to discuss Abducted, the Travis Walton UFO encounter. Travis Walton. This is the 50th anniversary of this experience that Mr. Walton had out in the wilds of Arizona. Um, the movie Fire in the Sky was based off of his experiences, and there's been just a lot of history here. So it'll be I believe, our first episode on UFOs as well. So after all the time.
no, I think I did one
Did one? Okay. There's
at
so
the
many. I lost track. I'm sorry. But yeah, but hopefully a really fun evening.
yeah.
Um, November 4th, Celebrating Spirits, the tales of Dia de los Muertes, Day of the Dead, coming right after Halloween. And then on the 11th, The Haunted Stronghold, Tales of the Castle of Good Hope. And November 18th, Elemental, Spirits. And then November 25th, we're going to have Steve Dills back for his third time. So uh, I'm going to host that episode and just let him go. We've learned that's how we have to do it. So it's going
Uh-huh.
to happen either way. You might as well let it go.
Yep.
But Steve's been a fantastic guest with us and an outstanding investigator and a great guy in the field um, with his team down at Transcend Paranormal down in Southern Virginia.
Mhm.
So we're looking forward to hosting him that night. And Chad will be away on assignment
Mhm.
in Florida. So we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's coming up.
If I can, I'll pop in, but you never,
I don't want to see you, sir. You're on vacation. No worries.
So, and I didn't want to make the type any smaller, Jamie. But do you want to preview? You want to see what's the week after that?
I can tell you a week after that. Actually, on December 2nd, it is going to be the digital seance experience with Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez joining us again. Steve will be on his third time, and Ron and Lourdes will be their fourth time. So,
Wow.
friends of the program and just great people and people
Hmm.
we love. So, so excited to get them back and see what's going on with their endeavor and whatever they want to talk about as well.
Right. Yep.
And we have events. So we're sold out on October 18th, is Saturday. And it's spooky season. That makes sense. And then coming up October 8th, we have 2 public events left this year, the 8th, and I forget the December event. It's here, but we'll tell you later. There's still about, double-digit tickets. I think it says 18.
Yep.
Maybe. Oh, man, I need new glasses. But with that, if you were interested at all in joining us at Mount Joy at Booby's Brewery, you can do so at boobiesbrewery.com, and then just click on the events tab and you'll find tickets there.
Right. Bert wants to know if we need to take a vacation day on the 26th to recoup.
Oof, maybe.
I mean, and that'll be the day before Thanksgiving, so you may as well take that extra vacation day and just, slide right into the holiday weekend, right?
Maybe. Let's see. We're intrepid. We'll figure it out.
So, all right. And then...
the ways to find us. So, obviously you're here with us tonight on this oh so very live program. You catch us on the streaming services tomorrow and thereafter. But if you're interested at all in us as a team, you can find us at our website at jot-nix, that's JOTTNYX, paranormal.com, all spelled out. Or if you're interested in dropping us a line, you can send us an email at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. And that includes any interest in a upcoming episode as far as a listener submission. If there's something that we haven't covered that you're interested in, or you say, hey, you got to do this, just drop us a line. We're all in on it. A little time to investigate it ourselves, just to dig into it, to present it. But we self-produce and we can move our schedule around. We've done it so many times already. We're happy to do it again. Mm-hmm. And then all of our information, all of our socials, and all the good stuff about us, including our store, is available at Linktree, which is linktr.ee/ it's a / Paranormal Lens, all spelled out. So linktr.e. I can't even do it again. I can't spell. I can't read. Oh my gosh.
Just search Linktree. It'll come up.
Linktree, yep. It'll come up right away. And then Paranormal Lens. So, and again, we do have some items available. There's some water bottles, some T-shirts, some mugs, and all that stuff. Christmas is coming. Great gifts for everyone.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Here we are.
Got through another one, Jamie.
These days, these travel days like this for me, I really so appreciate us being able to do this digitally and remotely from where we are anyway in our homes, but not missing a beat here in Western Ohio, where you are in southeastern Pennsylvania. It's so much fun to do this, and this is a great topic. I appreciate the detail that you provided to the story as well. So thank you so very much for digging in.
Yeah, my pleasure. So. And thank you to our listeners and our guests. Those of you who are watching us live, everybody's our guest, right, Jamie?
Everybody, right? Of course.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Those who are listening to us on the podcast, reach out and let us know how we're doing. 1 star, 5 stars, or 7 stars, even if you can, right?
I don't know if there's that many, but okay, we'll take them.
But give it a shot. We'll see.
You can do a write-in. More stars. Yeah.
But yeah, we do this because you're out there listening and watching, and we're watching the stats on our Spotify, and it's more and more viewers every day, and it's a good feeling to know that there's people out there who are enjoying our topics and watching what we do. So thank you very much. We appreciate that. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Bert's saying he wants to see the house, but it's just so far away.
Yeah. Well, it is. But, again, road trip.
Mm-hmm. If we all go together, we can divvy up the driving.
It's true.
So
there's an old adage that a friend of mine used to use all the time in the social service world, and I'm probably going to say it backwards because he always did it wrong the first time. But if you want to, right? So bear with me. But if you want to go faster, go by yourself. But if you want to go farther, go with others. That is the right way of saying it. And it means you can certainly get there fast, but will you get there better? When you travel with others, you commiserate. You have supports. Right. And he was a bicyclist, so like a bike team versus a solo rider.
Right.
I think that matters there. But So us all going together will certainly get there.
But apparently, Alex won't be driving us.
Okay, that's fine. We need a navigator. That's all good.
Yeah. So, well, any closing thoughts, Jamie?
No, I don't. I don't. Again, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. It's really cool to have such great engagement on this episode, and thanks, Jed, for the topic.
Mm-hmm.
It was really fun. I've known about the Mystery House for a long time, and it is my regret of living in the Central Coast of California not to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But you brought back a lot of it, and you really did justice to the episode, the topic, in this episode. So appreciate you. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks. So to wrap it up, I'm going to say, from staircases that lead nowhere to doors that open into thin air, the Winchester Mystery House reminds us that sometimes the greatest haunting comes from within. Its secrets linger, waiting for those brave enough to seek them. So until next time, stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. Good night.